thank you very much for your session, and thank you very much, Dr. Nepal, as well as for that interesting session. And thank you, Tombi, for summarizing it up. Now, as what we're going to do, as Honor has already said, we're going to summarize the day before we make a thorough conclusion to the day. In that regard, I'd like to call Farida to come give us a reflection or key takeaways on session one. Farida, the floor is yours. And for bandwidth's sake, I think we can just reduce or close our cameras for the time being so that save bandwidth. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Pelagi Giswandi Farida Saadgo, and I'm delighted to be here today as a scribe for the session number 1A. It's truly a wonderful opportunity to both learn and contribute, and I'm excited to share with you the key takeaways from this session. Now, this session focused on children's rights and was presented by Margaret Zulu. The key takeaways from these sessions are the importance of children's rights. Children's rights are fundamental to ensuring that every child has access to the opportunities they need for a healthy and fulfilling life. These rights are ensuring in various international conventions, such as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, which set the framework for governments to protect and uphold the rights of all children, irrespective of their background or nationality. Second, challenges in protecting migrant children. While there has been progress, unaccompanied and separate migrant children face unique challenges. These children are particularly vulnerable to exploitation, trafficking, and lack of access to education and health care. Governments and international bodies need to ensure that these children are treated with dignity and provided with the protection they deserve. And then we have the legal framework for protection. South Africa's legal system has provide provisions to protect children, including migrant children, through the Children's Act and the Refugees. However, implementation gaps remain, particularly in borders area for children in transit. Policies need to be more child-friendly, focusing on their best interests and ensuring their access to basic services such as healthcare, education, and legal protection. We have also the role of data in child protection. A major challenge of the lack of accurate data on the number of unaccompanied and separate migrant children. Without this information, it's difficult to provide adequate support and services. Improved data collection and management systems are crucial in identifying these children and ensuring they are given the protection and care they need. The recommendation for better protection. Some of recommendations for improving the situation of migrant children include child-friendly spaces and at border crossing to provide immediate care and identification, better inter-agency coordination to improve response efforts for migrant children, inclusive policies that consider that the children's best interests, non-discrimination and participation in decisions that affect them. So in conclusion, this session shed light on the urgent need for better protection mechanisms for children particularly those who are migrants or separate from their families. While legal frameworks exist, more needs to be done to ensure these rights are fully realized for every child, especially the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Kimberly, and I was a scriber in session 1B. In session 1B, we were discussing women's rights with Noomi Anyanwu, and I will just briefly cover the key takeaways from that session. We started by looking and discussing a number of pressing inequalities that immigrant women face, and I will just list. Yes.
Feel free to show your face in that regard so that it's easy to follow. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Hold on for me. Hi, everyone. So yes, as I was proceeding, um, the pressing inequalities that immigrant women face. The first being the gender pay gap, which is something that most women already face in the workplace, which is regarding the fact that they get paid less for the same amount of work. And we just discussed how this is worse for undocumented immigrant workers. The second one being workplace discrimination. And there, Noomi just listed for us a study that was done where applications for the same position were sent in with the same qualifications and the same CV, but the results indicated that non-white immigrant women would need to apply between 3 to 8 more times before they were invited for an interview, as opposed to white or citizen women. And so the conclusion to that study was the fact that immigrant women are treated differently and unfairly in workplaces. The third point being that there was limited and unfair and inconsistent access to reproductive rights, and this was regarding things such as abortion rights. And the fourth point was regarding gender-based violence, which was studied to remain extremely high and can get up to 55% of women reporting as having had experienced gender-based violence starting from an age as early as 15 years old. The next point there was regarding the inherent lack of representation in politics and leadership for women, and how this was indicated by the lack of policies that represented and protected the rights of immigrant women. And then the last one there was regarding the unequal burden that immigrant women faced because of how much unpaid care work that they were inherently expected to perform and to take care of without that ever being acknowledged or compensated. And then Noomi briefly covered the advocacy work that Black Voices Austria does, which is a national movement which is against racism and discrimination, which was established in Austria. And it was established, it also managed to establish the first referendum for a national anti-racism action plan. And this was the first referendum that was actually taken into place. And it was with the goals of addressing the issues of racism and discrimination for different minority groups. And it uses intersectionality for those different groups as one of the main focuses for the policies that come from that group. And then next, we just covered a few of the challenges that are faced specifically by women, refugees, and asylum seekers in these countries. And I won't go into too much details on these because we have covered most of them already, but this was things such as the limited mobility that they face, a lack of access to resources, being dependent on male counterparts due to not being able to work themselves, being able to face domestic abuse and violence and not reporting this due to the fact that they have this fear of deportation, and they also are at risk of isolation due to the exact same reason, a limited access to healthcare, and as well as a limited access to education due to the same issue of a fear of deportation and being undocumented in a lot of these places. And then we also discussed a statistic regarding domestic workers who in South Africa, 80% of domestic workers are women, and the majority of these are non-white women. And due to the fact that domestic workers and the sector of work that domestic workers exist in is mostly informal, it's mostly private, this leaves them in a position where they're very vulnerable and they're mostly unprotected. And so they are very prone to abuse. And when they do face these kind of unfair discrimination and abuses, and perhaps even being let go without any sort of justification or compensation, they don't have really regular means to report this or have this compensated or fixed in any way due to the fact that they do fear being deported, or even worse, being taken away from their families or people that they may be in the country with. And so lastly, in that section, we did look at some recommendations to the problems and issues that were listed above. And some of these are in local government. We can have social programs, we can promote local leadership by women, and we can support local support systems for victims of abuse. And on a national level, we can develop action plans for addressing gender-based violence. We can enforce gender equality laws and gender equity laws. And lastly, we can invest in women's education and entrepreneurship, which would allow them to be more independent and less reliant on people that could make them prone to abuse. And then internationally, we can look at things like strengthening legal frameworks with specific gender-based protections as being a focus for that for migrant and refugee women. And we can promote global initiatives that combat human trafficking and exploitation for undocumented women who are particularly vulnerable to such things. And then lastly, we can increase things like global funding for gender equality and for women's rights. And at the end of our session, we did have an open discussion where a question was posed for if one was an immigrant woman going into the country, undocumented or documented, what kind of country would they want to find? What kind of accommodations would assist them to feel more comfortable, more accommodated, more protection going into that country? And we had several answers that covered things such as resettlement programs, basic needs being covered, community work that allows for independence, education and protection, as well as an educated and open community and society that would be educated into the fact that immigrants aren't enemies, so to speak. And that was the coverage of our session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kimberly. And I just wanted to comment more, but I love the energy and the passion that actually comes up when the presentations are made. But allow me to share this moment with Dombi before we give then Dombi for now. Dombi, did you come in?
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. I think my coming in is to say thank you to everyone and to acknowledge the work and the effort and dedication that is placed into just facilitating today's session. And we'd like to say your participation, your voices have been recorded, have been noted, and it will form part of the conference report, as we indicated right at the beginning of the session. And these inputs will be something that we take also into the year 2025, 2026, and going forward, just to reflect on the necessary areas that we still need to advocate and raise awareness about these pertinent issues. We'd like to not only thank you for your participation, but for those that have been able to be instrumental in seeing this day through. The reflections of the young people and their zealousness and their passion behind obviously advocating for these subjective matters is also something that we are very glad to see, and we continue to encourage the information sharing, also workshops and engagements beyond just today. And we're hoping that also looking at these young, brilliant minds with the different organizations that we will be sharing their information with, their profiles give indication of the work that they have done, the expertise, but also looking at any other opportunities of placements that you could consider. And that is something that we'll be reflecting also to our partners, collaborators, and those that are in the forefront of these conversations. These are advocates of change, and it's imperative that we also foster that necessary developmental transition as they forge ahead in addressing pertinent human rights advocacy issues and subjects. And without being very too long, I'd like to say it has been quite a journey for today to see all these activities through. And we are looking forward to tomorrow, wherein we are also diving deeper into different aspects. It is statelessness, addressing the difference between smuggling and human trafficking, but reflecting on how the vulnerable groups of individuals traveling, documented, undocumented, find themselves in these very tight and vulnerable positions, and how we as community members, civil society, global community can be able to facilitate not just the conversations, but the necessary inputs towards those legal frameworks that we are mentioning, those national frameworks that we are making reference to, and how we can start to see the necessary transformation from a local level all the way to those that are sitting in parliament. It is imperative that your inputs, your thoughts, your ideas, as well as for you to share not just the click or the link to the sessions, but also to encourage the necessary conversations. From myself, I'd like to say thank you to the team and to yourself, Alex, for facilitating today. You have been such a lovely addition to the team. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the session today. I guess we've been thanked, thanking everybody who is here, who has contributed, who have provided the questions. I'd like mostly for myself also to really appreciate the scribers, for them to having to pay attention throughout the sessions and actually coming back to present on that. Tommy, can you give us just a last bit tip of how tomorrow is going to roll out before you literally physically close them?
Okay. Oh, thank you, Alex. So tomorrow, what you can anticipate is the conversation between the statelessness. What does that mean? How does it look like? Does it just affect those that are citizens in a country, or it affects a broad spectrum of individuals coming in? That will be facilitated by one of our speakers, guest speakers, who is Tandega Chauke, who is a lawyer for human rights, lawyer and in the front line of the advocacy programs relating to addressing these thematic areas. Secondary to that, we are having Hilary Leong. She is from ACT Africa, and she'll be addressing these pertinent issues in providing a difference between what it means to be smuggled or human trafficked, as well as the work that they're doing at ACT Africa to make sure that the advocacy work that is necessary in those two thematic areas are provided for. And in conclusion to tomorrow's sessions, we will be discussing and having a conversation about what it is that we need to be looking into the future, reflecting on today's session as tomorrow, and what it is, the remedies that we need to be sending as a recommendation with the conference report to those that are in prominent positions of decision making. And that is what you can anticipate tomorrow. Do share the link with family, friends, and those that you think can benefit from the conversation, as well as you. If you want to raise any questions, just remember, you could still write to us, as Arnett had given the email address. It is IHLI.undocumented@gmail.com, where you can make submissions, either asking any of the speakers that we had today, from your Margaret Zulu, who is from Save the Children South Africa, or Nicholas Maple from a Refugee Law Initiative in London, based in the UK, or as well as Noomi Anyanwu, the founding director of Black Voices Austria, and addressing all these thematic areas, which were children's rights and women's rights, including refugees. And we are looking forward to tomorrow. Thank you very much. From myself, I give over to you, Alex, to make and close off on any things that you would like to conclude.
Thank you very much, Ntombi. Ralaboha, Siabonga, Waitabasa. And we really appreciate today's session. And all I can say is have yourself a beautiful evening or afternoon, depending on the time you are in. Otherwise, ciao.